On COVID misinformation, what's your message to platforms like Facebook?
They're killing people. I mean, look, the only pandemic we have is among the unvaccinated. And they're killing people.
President Biden on Friday pulled no punches as the White House cranks up the pressure on Facebook to clean up its COVID misinformation problem.
There's about 12 people who are producing 65% of anti-vaccine misinformation on social media platforms. All of them remain active on Facebook, despite some even being banned on other platforms, including Facebook, ones that Facebook owns.
But now the social media giant is pushing back. In a new statement, Facebook argues that its users have become more open to taking the vaccine and that blame over low vaccination rates is not on them. Quote, Facebook is not the reason Biden's vaccination goal was missed. Joining me now is Sophia Nelson, author of E Pluribus One and contributing editor at The Grio, and Dr. Ashish Jha, Dean of Brown University's School of Public Health. Thank you both very much for coming back to the Sunday show. Sophia, let me start with you on the issue of misinformation. You have a piece in The Grio with the headline, How Trump and the Right's Anti-Vaccine Propaganda is Killing Black People. Real quickly, talk about why you make that bold assertion as we see there the stats.
Well, Jonathan, it's simple. If you look at the red states in this country, most of them fall below the Mason-Dixon line. I'm in Virginia. We're a good state with a high vaccinated population. But states like Arkansas, Tennessee, Louisiana, Mississippi, et cetera, have terrible vaccine rates, and they're impacting rural whites, but in particular and disproportionately African Americans. And when you look at the death numbers and you look at the sick, 99% of those getting this Delta variant, as the good doctor will tell us, are people who are unvaccinated. And the lies and the misinformation doesn't just hit the base, I think, as we Washington pundits like to believe. It hits everybody. The Black community is already afraid, Jonathan, for a lot of good reasons about government experiments on us and things in the past. So any misinformation out there hits us hardest.
Yeah, Dr. Jha, what do you make of that? And also, I would just love your opinion on the power of having the president of the United States go headlong into, talking about the misinformation that's out there and who's perpetuating it.
Yeah, so Jonathan, thanks for having me back. I mean, first of all, it's absolutely correct that most of the people who are getting sick and dying right now are unvaccinated. And then if you look at groups that are unvaccinated, Black Americans have much lower vaccination rates than whites. And so the question is why? What's going on? And it's multifactorial. There are issues of access still that we have to work on. But there is concerted misinformation targeting the African American community, playing up historical and present day racism and linking it to anti-vaccine rhetoric. It's really shameful. It's basically using one historical injustice to perpetrate another. So I was glad to see the president call out Facebook. I think Facebook has been sort of public health enemy number one. They have spread more misinformation and seem less interested in doing anything about it than anyone else. But we've got a lot of work to do here.
Dr. Jha, let me stick with you because, one of the things that we're also talking about in addition to the misinformation is, what's happened with some of the folks in the Texas delegation here in Washington. The fact that 3 people fully vaccinated still tested positive for COVID. There are a lot of people out there who I suspect think that, well, if I've gotten the vaccine, I'm totally immune. That doesn't mean that you can't catch COVID once you're vaccinated, right?
No, that's right. So look, these vaccines are remarkable. They do prevent you from catching COVID, but it's not 100%. And we're going to see some breakthrough infections. The good news is that if you get infected with COVID after you've been vaccinated, you are extremely unlikely to get sick or die. So these vaccines are terrific at protecting you from severe illness. They're still quite good at protecting you from mild illness, but not perfect.
Okay, and Sophia, to go back to the misinformation aspect of the COVID story, I'm seeing stories in newspapers about how we talk to people to convince them to get vaccinated. Are we at that point now where there's just no telling anybody I mean, once they're convinced they're not going to get vaccinated, they're not going to get vaccinated? Or am I being too hardcore, hard line here?
Well, I think it's both and not either or. So, for example, there's been a lot of talk about President Biden getting on TV with former President Trump and having him say, look, I took the vaccine, meaning Trump, and you should take the vaccine to fight this misinformation. The problem is Trump could have done that when he took the vaccine in January before Biden was sworn in, and he hasn't. Fox News, Tucker Carlson, Laura Ingraham, a whole bunch of hosts who are all vaccinated, by the way, folks. A lot of people who they're telling to be concerned and it's taken away their freedoms and it's anti-American. These very people, Jonathan, are vaccinated. So I think the problem is what both the doctor and I agree is if you're going to just lie to folks, let's just call it what it is. It's do what I say, not what I do. I don't know how you fix that because people see this and they believe their freedoms are being taken away. Look, I own guns. I don't like wearing masks. I live in the South, all those things, but I got vaccinated and everybody I know got vaccinated. And I wear my mask when I'm out to protect other people and myself. So I don't get what this is all about, but the big lie continues. This is big lie part 2 with the mask situation and with the vaccine. So I don't know how you fix it.
And Dr. Jha, real quickly to you for the last word, are we in danger, do you think, given the Delta variants and the epidemic of the unvaccinated, as the CDC director Walensky said last week, are we in danger of backsliding in the fall? Could we see shutdowns again, do you think?
Well, that's what I'm worried about. And there's only one way out of that, right, which is to get a lot more folks vaccinated. We're starting to see some sliding back of mask mandates going back into place, especially in places with low vaccination rates, which are seeing the big surges. I think if we want to all put this pandemic behind us, and I know I do, let's get more people vaccinated and let's get on with our lives.
All right. And with that, we're going to have to leave it there. Dr. Ashish Jha and Sophia Nelson, thank you both very much for coming back to the Sunday Show.